In a quiet town nestled between vast mountains and deep valleys, there lived a boy named Elijah whose dreams were too big for the small space he was born into. His family was poor, his house was barely holding together, and his life seemed set in the same circle that had trapped generations before him. But Elijah had a fire inside him, a voice that whispered every night as he stared at the broken ceiling of his room, "You were born for more." Every day after school, while others played or wandered, Elijah would walk 10 miles to a library in the next town because he knew that knowledge was the key to a better life. He read about great inventors, about people who had nothing but ended up changing the world. He started writing, scribbling ideas, stories, and inventions in old notebooks. People laughed. His teachers called him a daydreamer. His neighbors said he was wasting time. But he kept walking that road to the library. Rain, snow, heat, it didn't matter. One day, the librarian, a woman named Ms. Carter, noticed his dedication and started giving him old, donated books to take home. Slowly, Elijah began building his own little world of ideas and goals. But life has a way of testing the strongest spirits. One winter, Elijah's father fell sick and couldn't work anymore. Elijah had to take up a job at a mechanic's shop to support the family. His dream felt like it was slipping through his fingers. He worked long hours, came home late, and was too tired to read or write. But that voice inside him didn't go quiet, it grew louder. So, Elijah started waking up at 4 a.m. Before anyone else, before work, before the world got noisy, he would read, write, and build his knowledge. Years passed. He finished school with average grades, not because he wasn't smart, but because life had made learning hard. But his heart was still on fire. He applied to a university. Rejected. Applied again. Rejected again. On the third try, he wrote a letter. Not just a form, but a story of who he was, what he had survived, and why he refused to quit. He got in. Not with a scholarship. Not with money. Just with the weight of his belief. In university, things got harder. Everyone around him came from privilege. They had laptops, tutors, time. He had 2 jobs, second-hand books, and sleepless nights. But he never complained. He knew that pain was his tuition. At night, while others partied, he studied. On weekends, while others rested, he worked. And slowly, he began to rise. His professors started noticing his writing. One of them sent his article to a national paper. It was published. The title was, "The Road Through Fire." That one article opened doors. People invited him to speak. A mentor offered to fund his next semester. Elijah graduated not at the top of his class, but with the strongest story. Then came another test. His mother passed away a month after graduation. The pain was unbearable. He felt lost. He questioned everything. But grief didn't break him, it reshaped him. He wrote about it. He spoke about it. He started a blog called Survive and Rise. It went viral. Millions of people read his story. He turned that blog into a book. That book became a bestseller. Years later, Elijah stood on a TED Talk stage, not as a famous author, not as a millionaire entrepreneur, though he had become both, but as a boy who had once walked miles just to touch a book. He looked into the camera and said, "You don't need perfect conditions to win. You need fire. You need belief. And when it hurts, you need to remember, greatness is on the other side of pain." He ended his talk by holding up the first notebook he had ever written in. Torn pages. Faded ink. But still holding his dream. And somewhere in the audience, a boy from a similar background wiped a tear and whispered to himself, "I will rise too." Elijah's story became more than just motivation. Schools started teaching it. People in prisons found hope through it. Single mothers, abandoned kids, young dreamers, all saw a piece of themselves in him. He used his wealth to build libraries in poor towns, including his own. Every child in that area could now read, dream, and write without walking 10 miles. One day, a journalist asked him, what was the turning point? He smiled and replied, the moment I decided to keep going, even when there was no sign of success. The moment I believed in the invisible. Life, he believed, is not about waiting for miracles, it's about becoming one. And as Elijah aged, he never stopped telling the world, no matter who you are, no matter where you start, your story isn't finished unless you give up. Your dream is valid. Your pain has purpose. And your next step might be the one that changes everything. So keep walking. Through storms. Through fire. Through doubt. Because the view from the top is worth every step you took in the dark.